Lowe's knows when you're looking for reliability, the right brand makes all the difference. And now, Lowe's is the exclusive home improvement retailer for the Whirlpool water treatment line, including their Wi-Fi softener, under-sink filtration system, and more. With Whirlpool's proven performance and our everyday low prices, better tasting, better quality water is within reach. Shop pro-trusted brands like Whirlpool and more, in-store or online. Lowe's, we help, you save.
In a so-called free state, officials and stakeholders concoct solutions to problems often created by other bureaucrats and with little regard for infringements on the people. These stories are born at the apex of freedom and entrepreneurship. We foolishly advocate for the taxpayer. Brian's Beat presents Freedom Fools.
Hour 2 of Freedom Fools on WBSM. Our quote of the day from Deion Primetime Sanders. I always wanted to make sure my parents didn't have to work again for the rest of their lives. I always wanted to make sure my parents didn't have to work again for the rest of their lives. I hear numerous athletes say that about their mom or their folks. And it makes me think, well, must have been hard times, and those parents worked their butts off, or parent worked their butt off to make sure that children had everything possible. Must be nice, huh? Your kid does so well that you don't ever have to work again. Wouldn't that be something? You wouldn't have to worry about rent control. You wouldn't have to worry about rent, never mind rent control. You wouldn't have to worry about who's going to pay that electricity bill. And that's where we're headed during hour number 2. We are waiting for Elijah D'Souza. He's on his way. He and his attorney, who happens to be a personal friend and former chairman of our Libertarian Party here in the Commonwealth, actually wrote up quite a few initiative petitions for Citizens Against Eversource. That is the original name. I'm not sure if that name has changed. But part of all, and there is a lot, I think 6 different ballot questions or possible potential pending ballot questions by Citizens Against Eversource. But one of them deals with us being able to opt in for the smart meters, smart electric meters that are going to be going on homes. And I think that's great. There's a lot dealing with transparency, which we know from dealing with Eversource, they have a tendency to not be as transparent as the yous and me's want them to be. So it should be interesting. As I said, I believe 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. There are 6 different initiative petitions dealing with electricity and utilities here in the Commonwealth. One, I think, also deals with gas. And I think that's important. But to me, at this particular time, the big issue is whether or not you and I can opt in for these so-called smart meters. As I look over all these, there's some thick pages here, definitions, purpose, that kind of stuff. And hopefully Elijah knows which one is which. But I find it interesting. An initiative petition for a law to promote affordability and transparency in electric utility billing. Now, just the title makes me think that Bacon Hill lawmakers would not just automatically pass this as written. They would want to doctor it up to make sure that they had their control. And I would like to believe that we, the people, would have control in this particular case. This isn't having the legislature get audited by the auditor. This is something drastically different. But it does make me wonder exactly what our Bacon Hill lawmakers will do when they are presented with this. At its current stage, it was filed, I'm going to say, about 4 or 5 minutes before the 5 p.m. deadline on Thursday to file for an initiative petition for the 2026 statewide election. So they got it in in fact, they were the last people, because they take them in order. They were the last people, they being Chris Thrasher, the person who wrote up the initiative petitions, and Elijah D'Souza, who actually presented them to the Attorney General's office. They were the last folks to actually put in paperwork to try to get something on as far as an initiative petition or a constitutional amendment for the 2026 cycle. So as I say, I'm very curious as to how the legislature will respond, because it's my guess, only a guess, that this will get approved by the Attorney General. And there will be enough people here in the Commonwealth to easily gather up 74,000 and change certified signatures to make the legislature want to somehow, some way, either respond positively, respond negatively, or not respond at all. I'm of the feeling that they won't want to respond to it. But be that as it may, there's a long way to go before then. What we're trying to do today is to help excite arousal. So when the petitions come out, and my guess is we will have a petition right here at WBSM, or a few, you'll be able to come here or find somebody at a Market Basket or Stop and Shop or Shaw's, visible areas, the Dartmouth Mall, so you can sign the initiative petition. I think that's job one is to get the thumbs up from Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General. Then it goes over to Bill Galvin's office. He is the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And then it gets formulated into petition form with a question that basically says, you read this, do you agree with it, or do you think that it's worthy enough to get on the 2026 election ballot? And that's where you'll sign your name, you'll put your address, and then, just to go through the process, each city and town gets their own petition. So if you live in Dartmouth, you'll sign the Dartmouth petition. Eventually, all the Dartmouth petitions end up going to the town clerk for certification. Then they get picked up, and then they're delivered to the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office for validation of the certification. That's how it goes in order to get a ballot question. So when we come back, we will speak with Elijah D'Souza, Freedom Fools. And believe me, freedom is not free. Freedom Fools on WBSM.
It will be because we organized and forced a government to speak to our needs.
People want a little house, not some McMansion, just a little normal house. That is the actual American dream. And that is what is totally unattainable for young people.
Welcome back. Elijah D'Souza is in studio. He's trying to get himself erected. People come in here and let's try to do that. Oh, can we do this? Isn't that so cute? Sit down.
Yes.
Sit down.
Yes.
Quit looking at the kid. You're supposed to be looking at me.
Yes, right. Yes.
I can't believe what's going on here.
You're absolutely right.
Elijah, welcome back to WB. Elijah.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
How are you?
Guy is so enamored with himself. Got to have his camera on and everything. Anyway, so you got busy this week.
Yes, absolutely. It was an insane week, and I'm happy that it ended favorably.
So favorably means you filed 6 different ballot initiatives with the Attorney General's office. Look, some of them, version A, version B. What's that all about?
Well, so basically, the more in depth you make one of these, the easier it is for the Attorney General to find something to reject the entire initiative for. And so, basically version A, B, and C, one of them is going to be slightly more regulated than the others in regards to, the demands that we make within the initiative, and the others are a little more simplified. So some would be a little bit more effective, and some are a little less effective in regards to the cuts that we want to make.
So when you talk about the opt-in for the electric meters, is that an A, a B, a C?
So that particular initiative there is a standalone initiative. There is only.
So what does it say exactly?
One version of that. So there are several provisions within that initiative. One of the provisions is that it requires the utility company to get written consent from any customer that they want to install an electric wireless smart meter.
So just to be, do they send me a form and I authorize them to do it? Do I have to contact them first? How does that work?
Basically,
how would it work?
It would be an opt-in feature, and the Department of Public Utilities is going to be tasked with initiating on how that plays out as far as, but the verbiage within the actual initiative requires a written consent as far as an opt-in. So whether it's via email, whether it's via snail mail, it would require the utilities to get that consent first.
And that's standalone, so there's no version A, version B, or 2 or 3 or anything like that.
No, for the smart meter,
pretty simple.
Yeah, for the smart meter, we basically took House Bill H3551, which was already a bill that's already in committee now in regards to smart meters, and we emulated that bill, and we may have added some other verbiage in there, but for the most part, 80% of the actual ballot initiative is an exact duplicate of that bill, and so they can't come out and say, oh hey, we have objections to this bill because it was written by representatives and co-sponsored by senators.
Well, it was written and co-sponsored, but since you've added different verbiage to their language, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be accepting of what you've put together. So bottom line, as we look ahead, now I'm going to guess, since you are going along the lines of what they had, that it's going to pass through the Attorney General's office. I'm going to triple guess that you're going to be able to get up the necessary signatures. So it then goes back to the legislature for either their thumbs up or they say nothing or their thumbs down. What do you think it's going to be when it gets back to the legislature?
Well, like I said, as far as that initiative is concerned, we see no potential legal challenges to it. Some of the verbiage that we added with some standard verbiage in ballot initiative, which it's a severability clause, which what that means is that there's anything within the actual initiative that they find that can't be instituted for whatever legal reason, then that specific subsection gets stricken. And so, there are many provisions within that smart meter initiative that would make it much easier for people to not only not have them, but to not have to pay any fee whatsoever. And so even if they were to strike one particular subsection of the bill, there are other protections for utility customers in regards to their ability to opt out of smart meters.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is so key to the whole opt-in, opt-out scenario that Eversource put in, that if you opt out, then you're going to be paying up the yin-yang every month. What did you put in to your opt-in, how whatever to play with if you do opt out or don't go with the plan, that you don't have to pay the extra money?
So we removed their ability to charge any surcharges, any penalties, and
they're not going to like you.
And what we also eliminated their ability to, try to limit services to any customers. Meaning they can't say, oh, hey, listen, because, you don't want the smart meter, we can't service you.
So in other words, they need to service us the way they're serving us today.
Exactly.
Whether or not we go for the smart meter.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so, we also put in some provisions in there that, they're unable to retaliate in any way, shape, or form to any customers that choose to not have a smart meter. And we put other provisions in there as well. So, for instance, if you move into a property, you have the right to have them come out and remove a current wireless smart meter that's already present at no charge, once again.
This is all part of that whole opt-in thing? Or that's something different?
That's basically, there are several provisions in there. That's one of the line items in regards to that initiative. Basically, if the initiative is passed via vote, right, it gets certified, we get the signatures, and it gets on the ballot, and people vote yes, which we're going yes all the way. Just say yes to every one of our ballot initiatives. It's going to make it a little easier to remember. Just say yes. Everything we proposed is going to help consumers. And so, whether it's removing the revenue decoupling mechanism, whether it's initiating limits on delivery charges from the utility, on every one of these initiatives, we want you guys to know a yes vote is what will get you to a state of, utility sovereignty in many respects, and it will help you get closer to that. But for this smart meter bill, when accepted, it requires the utilities to send out a notice to all utilities customers, telling them and letting them know, hey, you have an analog meter, or hey, you have a smart meter. And so they need to notify everybody upon acceptance of this initiative, upon implementation, as far as whether they have a smart meter or not. And they have, I believe, 90 days is the limit that they have for that.
You added another little wrinkle right there. So it begs yet another question from the guy who has nothing but questions. And that would be, do you see an effort by Eversource right now, and maybe some of the other, National Grid, some of the other utilities, they see what's coming down the road with this ballot question, and they rush to install these smart meters before that ballot question ever comes up in November of 2026?
Well, that's okay, because there's a provision within the initiative that, if a customer moves into a property, or once it becomes law, first of all, like I said, a notice will come out to every customer and let them know, hey, you have a smart meter. And it allows for them to request it to be removed. And so they can rush them out all they want and spend all that excess money on getting those smart meters on, but it's just going to cost them more money to remove them. I mean, first of all,
but don't you see either the legislature or the secretary, not the Secretary of State, but the Attorney General somehow ruling that, well, this part's going to need to be scratched out because they already put the meters in? They were already in the process of installing those meters?
No, it gives people the guarantee and the ability to remove them. And, without any sort of reprisal from the utility company. And so it enshrines that ability to consumers.
Are you a regular voter?
I am.
You voted in 2024?
I did.
You voted for the state auditor to be able to audit the legislature?
Oh, I absolutely did.
And that passed?
Absolutely.
And the legislature is complying?
The legislature is not complying.
So you see where I'm coming from here.
Absolutely.
I mean, the attorney general and the legislature are pretty strong Democrats, would you say?
Absolutely.
So I'm getting at the point that anything can happen around here.
No. Anything can always happen, but that doesn't mean that we're just going to give up. That doesn't mean that we're not going to try to fight. I mean, and that's such as life, right? And we're playing this is a war, and it's a chess game.
It's sad that you're absolutely correct, Elijah D'Souza in studio with us. It is a war. It's a war between the people, the voters, the taxpayers, ratepayers, and in this particular case, against the echelon that seems to be almost untouchable.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel like I need to go to school and get a law degree.
And hopefully once you get it, you'll be able to make the money back. Unless you're going to be like them and be in office, and once you get in there, now we lost Elijah.
Well, we're in a Democratic state, and so maybe I'll be able to get some tuition reimbursement somewhere. But
you mass law school.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that politics and the legislature, I mean, it acts similar to a courtroom. If you ever pick up one of these bills, you understand exactly what I mean. Mm-hmm. It's all legalese, and knowing how to navigate a courtroom and use the specific legalese needed to implement these new statutes and laws. I mean, it would be, a worthy tool to have in your tool belt. And like I said, if you're going to go to war, you need to have, all the tools necessary at your disposal. And, like I said, I'm a good researcher, but, I can imagine I can learn a thing or two at law school, or even just taking some courses in regards to, contract writing or bill writing, or, some concentration classes.
It's going to be like one of those nurse practitioners or what do they call that? The physician assistant now. Paralegal. Elijah D'Souza in studio with us. 508-996-0500 if you'd like to get on. And we're talking about his potential. I mean, you've got 6 different questions. You're not expecting all 6 to be approved, or you're going to end up taking the best out of the 6 if all 6 are approved. Am I right about that?
So 2 of them are independent bills, or initiatives. The other 4 are very similar in what they try to do with some of the initiatives. So in essence, they are the same thing. So one of them is specifically gas. One of them is specifically in regards to electric. And then the other 2 are a combination of gas and electric, and once again, a combination of gas and electric, but a little bit more simplified. And so, we went at it a couple different ways, just to give ourselves the best fighting chance,
So I'm going to go back just a little bit. We were talking about the legislature. Have you talked to any of the state reps, any of the state senators, anybody in the local contingent about what you're trying to do and get their feeling about what's happening with the Eversource in this particular case?
Absolutely. And of course, this state is about 80% liberal, right, as far as our representation goes. And so, it's sad to say that any Republican representatives we have, when they write up a bill, it's hard for them to get any sort of movement whatsoever. It's sort of just symbolic in nature because the Democrats have full power and control, and so any help that they can get from the members of the public in regards to helping get some bills implemented that help people be able to defend themselves against some of the overreach of, the Democratic legislature. I mean, they're very happy and grateful for it, because they're fighting a losing battle within the legislature. And so, the more that we could help them out through these initiatives, because, that's the loophole. You may not be able to get a bill through the legislature or the Senate. You may not be able to get a bill heard. You may not be able to get a bill on the floor. And if you do get it on the floor, well, good luck getting it approved, because the Democrats won't vote for it. Just based on...
Well, it can't get on the floor without the Democrats voting for it.
And sometimes they'll play nice and they'll allow it on the floor, Mariano. But knowing full well that it'll never pass, And so, those are the type of games that they play within the legislature. And so...
Well, how about, let's try it like this. How could we make what we want to have happen appealing to the Democrats? And I'm going to separate Democrats. I think people in the Commonwealth, especially the elected officials, they choose Democrat because it's political suicide in the Commonwealth to be in any other party. That doesn't necessarily mean they're liberal, conservative, moderate, whatever, but they choose Democrat because they're trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, and so the majority of the I saw, a poll that somewhere between around 60% of Massachusetts residents, citizens, are in fact independent.
Yeah.
And so, there are a lot of independents in the state. A lot of them tend to, at times, vote Democrat. Okay.
I guess so. Take a look at the legislature.
Absolutely. And, I sincerely think, there's another issue there in regards to why that happens. I find that Democrats are much more organized, as far as their campaigns, as far as their coordination with each other. We look at the Republican Party, and there's been some infighting within the party for, the better part of the last 10 years. And so, when we destroy ourselves from within, and I say we, but like I said, I'm just speaking off the cuff here. But when we destroy ourselves from within, it makes it pretty easy for the Democrats to,
I won't argue that. I'm not a Republican, but I would say this. The Republicans seem to do all right in Texas and Florida and Arizona and many other states. So I think they've got their crap together, but maybe not here in the Commonwealth.
Let's also look at this, right? When we look at voter turnout, we're averaging, and that's just, throughout the entirety of the registered voter population, around between 15 and 20%, which is atrocious. And so, if you're getting off the bat 15 to 20% voter turnout cumulatively between liberals and Republicans, that's terrible, right? Now we look at the Democrats. The Democrats fully believe in write-in ballots, early voting. And so that there's been, a sort of taboo created around that for the Republicans. It's looked at as not valid. And so if you're a Republican and you're a working class person and you got one day to get to a vote and you got to work, you got to pick up your kids, you got to get food for the family.
That sounds like a Republican problem. That doesn't sound like the voter problem here.
It's only a Republican problem because there's a taboo within the Republican regime in regards to the early voting. And so, I feel like we need to organize better and, destroy that taboo, because that taboo is holding us back in regards to representation at the ballot box.
Well, I think the Republican Party is still trying, in this state, is still trying to figure it out. Maybe they have. Don't know. But I think what you brought up is just a microcosm of some of the things that are going on within the Republican Party here in the Commonwealth. That being stated, getting back to the question at hand, since the Democrats do have and will certainly have control leading up to, I think it's November 6th or November 4th, whenever, one of those days, the election day of 2026. how do you try to get those Democrats, or do you just forget about them and go directly to the voter, not giving a rat's you-know-what about what that elected Democrat is thinking?
Well, I will say that
elected official Democrat.
This is not, as far as being able to opt out of smart meters, it's not a Republican or a Democratic issue. I mean, at the end of the day, there are many people around the state that have what's called electromagnetic sensitivity. And so this becomes a health concern for them as far as having
bring it up to the Board of Health
smart
then.
meters. And so, the reality is everyone deserves the right to live comfortably in their homes without having electromagnetic rays that it will hurt their health beaming at them. And, when it comes to Republicans and Democrats, they're all for health, right? Nobody is against health here and setting up health standards for people that have sensitivities to certain issues. I mean, Democrats have been known for quite some time to be, very vocal about the minorities within the state and protecting them. And people that have those electromagnetic sensitivities, they're very much so minorities that need protection. And so if the Democratic Party is what they proclaim to be, is the protectors of minorities, and then they should get on this expeditiously.
But they could do that and make the so-called exception to the rule, like you see all the different clauses in some of these other initiatives.
And like I said, I'm playing the long game. I just started out 4 months ago, on my couch. I'm a working class schlep and knew absolutely nothing about the inner workings of, the political sphere. And
I get the feeling you're learning pretty fast.
And like I said, here we are today, 4 months later, 6 ballot initiatives filed, been on, 30 different major broadcasts. You're being one of them, a group with 36,000 members and growing. I've aligned myself with many state representatives and senators as far as developed relationships and friendships with, other sitting elected officials. And so, it's been 4 months.
Okay, well, let's try to break it down. Have you had a conversation with Senator Montigny about this?
I have not had a conversation with Senator Montigny thus yet. And, I will say for a lot of the local representatives within my district, I typically only even see them when, a new train is open, a new restaurant opens up, a new shelter, which, like I said, but it seems to be, a ribbon cutting ceremony is required to garner their attention. And
well, maybe get a little bow and say, here, this is what we're trying to push. Would you like to cut this?
Well, like I said, I don't have time to pander to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. I mean, I'm busy fighting for the constituents of Massachusetts, and so I don't have time to grovel and beg for my elected officials to do their jobs. And so, if they wake up on the right side of the bed on any particular day, I'm easy to find. I'm a public figure. I have, like I said, 36,000 members. I try to answer as many messages as I can on a daily basis. And so I'm very easy to find. I don't have any gatekeepers, to get to me.
You got a Facebook too, popular Facebook.
I have a Facebook. I mean, I'm available. I speak to, probably I want to say 60 to 100 of my members on a daily basis. When they message me directly, and so I'm available. And the reality is, a lot of our elected officials, some of the ones that you mentioned, it's not about their constituents' needs or wants. It's about appeasing their brethren within the legislature. And, we need representation that does what they're meant to do, which is advocate for the citizens within their district and not be playing the fraternity buddy system of, hey, listen, I know you guys want this, but, my brother on the left, on the side here, they're telling me to vote this way. We need some representation with some courage.
Yeah, look, I hear you loud and clear. I've had conversations on WBSM, outside of WBSM, certainly within the Libertarian Party, of which I am a board member. And it comes down to this. When you're called to go to work, I don't know what you do for work, Elijah, but when you're called to go to work and it's time to make the money so you can pay the rent, buy your groceries, every once in a while go out for whatever reason, have a beer, you're going to go out and make that money, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. Bacon Hill lawmakers, they're pretty much the same.
You said Bacon Hill.
I always call them, that's all the time. Or I try to most of the time.
I don't know if that was a Freudian slip.
No.
It was right on.
I hear myself saying Bacon Hill lawmakers for eons. But at any rate, they're out thinking about their own hide. Because if they upset the apple cart, the Senate president, the Speaker of the House, the person who is the chairman of their particular subcommittee, or maybe they are the chairperson of that subcommittee, they don't want to lose that seat. That's a loss of money.
Well, you asked what I did, and so I'm just going to mention that I'm in a construction estimator for Vaz Construction, which is a local company within the area. Great company. You guys need vinyl, windows, roofing.
Listen to this.
We're available.
Shameless
Been around
plug.
for almost 20 years within the city and have a great reputation. But, and here's the thing, that's the private sector. If you run for office, that's the public sector.
It is, but it's a private club once you get in.
But the reality is, if you're there for personal gain, you're there for the wrong reasons. I mean,
I'm not going to argue that, Elijah, but once you're there, somebody in the leadership knows all about you. And, sometimes you see what Trump is doing to certain people. I mean, he's got the dirt on them, and then next thing you know, they're fired. They don't want that. Same thing with the Bacon Hill lawmakers. They don't want to be unceremoniously fired or have some type of charge leveled against them that they've got to fight against. So, I mean, this is an uphill battle. This is a battle that you're waging. I am behind you 1,000%. But this is a battle that we have to be direct with the people. And I'm asking you what Montigny, and I can add Cabral and Markey and Hendricks and all of the people in our area. But the question still remains, and I'm getting from your answer that nobody's calling up Elijah saying, hey, do you need help with this? How can I help you up on Bacon Hill? Well,
and what I'll say is, I'm speaking to the voters now, and the voters need to ask themselves one thing. What is your quality of life now compared to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? Are you satisfied with what you're getting? And the reality is, if you want different results, you have to do different things. And so, it's plain to see for the majority of us that we're going to have to get some different type of leaders in there. And anybody that's, especially in the past 5 years, because things have gotten exceptionally worse. Things are not getting any better. And so we really need to change course. And, I know most of us are tethered to, certain representatives because of certain ideological principles. And I will say Democrats are very good at that, at, pulling on those heartstrings. Well, you got to get us in because we're going to protect you on this or protect you on that. But they're going to give it to you, in the other direction. And so the voters need to understand that we need to shift in a different direction so that we can produce different results. And I think most people cannot argue with that when you look at cost of living and the affordability of living within this state. And so beyond that, I mean, as far as you mentioned, if people were giving me a call, and I have had some calls in regards to people asking if they can help in one way or another. The fault was, on my own in a sense in regards to, I mean, we only had everything finalized really late in the season in regards to the ballot initiative. So it wasn't the scenario where, if I was to send it to the people who were looking to help, that they would have too much time to deliberate and et cetera and look at everything. And so, I'm going to be doing my rounds now.
Is it one of those things where, because you've been on this show several times and other programs, is it one of those things that you started taking to heart that people were saying you got to do a ballot initiative, but by that particular time you got the ball rolling, it was late in the season?
Well, and the thing is, to create a ballot initiative, typically you need a lawyer, because of what we mentioned previously is the legalese, and so, good luck finding a lawyer that wants to work pro bono.
Yeah.
So that impediment right there,
especially that type of lawyer,
that's a very specialized field that there are only a handful.
And of course, it's the libertarian who helped you out.
Absolutely, and a gentleman named Christopher Thrasher, and like I said, I met him at a local event there at the Warm Sutter Club that was held, that hosted Diana DiZoglio and some other Republican representation and et cetera, so Democrat and Republican in that respect. And like I said, and of course, he signed up, he was passionate about what we were doing, and and he's one of the attorneys in this state that doesn't lobby for Eversource, because it seems like 90% of them do. But it took some time developing and going back and forth. I had the blueprint of the majority of these initiatives, and of course he added his legal interpretation of what I wanted to do, and struck out things that we certainly couldn't do, and et cetera. And so that was fantastic to run into him and to be able to put this together. And it was a battle, and it was a pleasure working with him, and I'm grateful.
You're making it sound like it's going to be past tense, that you're not going to work with him anymore.
Oh, no. I'm going to continue working with him. I'm saying it was a pleasure having worked with him, on that aspect of generating. And like I said, I'm very grateful for having met someone, because it literally came down to the wire in regards to, like I said, just trying to find someone was an insane uphill. I mean, how many lawyers do you know that work for free?
Who says he's working for free?
He's working for free.
How do you know?
Because there have been no exchanges, no financial exchanges, and because this.
But isn't he going to keep on working for you?
And like I said, that's a conversation that we're going to have. It's expected that is going to be the case.
Don't you think that there'll be some money exchanged at that time?
Well, and like I said, within a ballot initiative campaign, of course, there is some potential revenue that can be made through the initiative. There are people, to sign, people to help with attaining the signatures. And, I'm not anti-capitalist in any way, and I completely understand, that aspect of the business. I mean, and I have nothing against the entrepreneurial spirit. And at the end of the day, though, you need to first find a lawyer who believes in the cause enough to donate the free time. I mean, when you donate that free time, you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk that it won't come to fruition, that maybe it doesn't even get certified, right? That, the person you're helping when you're taking that risk and donating your time isn't able to galvanize enough members and enough people to be able to, and so, he invested his time and took that risk, and that's a risk that most lawyers were not willing to take. And so I'm very grateful.
While I will agree with everything that you just stated, as a person who knows Christopher Thrasher, I think not only does he believe in your cause, but he believes that after he did the writing that he did, that it's going to be a question of, you're going to be able to go out and get the signatures, and I might be able to help you get those signatures because he has been on that side of the stick before.
And we need all the help that we can get,
Absolutely.
And whether it's, from people that have businesses in regards to signature gathering campaigns, or, the most important part is the grassroots efforts, the members. Everybody who has either Eversource, National Grid, Unitil, or Liberty Utilities. I mean, it's in everyone's best interest to help us in this endeavor because you're essentially helping yourself.
I won't argue any of that. I am going to come out with a question. I think I asked you a while ago. You brought up the other utilities, and I know what Eversource has planned. I don't know what National Grid, Unitil, or any of these other utilities have as far as implementing smart meters or anything like that. Any thoughts on that? Because my guess is the utility companies, as you were saying before, they've got plenty of attorneys. They've got the PR companies. They know how to galvanize together and try to fight this.
Well, their goals are all exactly the same because they're investor-owned utilities. They're all regulated by the DPU, and the DPU just reinterprets and regulates laws passed down by the legislature. And so the laws are there. And they're instituted by the legislature as far as AMI, which is, smart meters as part of the AMI system that the legislature wants to put forward. And so they're all going to be under the same umbrella as far as, so the National Grid is also starting to implement smart meters, and the other, Unitil and Liberty Utilities are going to be starting that as well. And so they all have to adhere to the legislature's laws. And so,
well, I agree with that, but my side of looking at it right now is they have their attorneys. They know what you have filed or what Chris Thrasher has written up. And my guess is, only a guess, I'm pretty good at this kind of a guess, they're already formulating their counterattack, whether it's with the Attorney General or mounting people on the streets because they know that this is too easy for the Attorney General to have to pass.
Well, like I said, House representation, Democrats have put forward this bill, which is H-3551, which is very similar to the initiative that we're proposing. It went to committee. It's, it's in limbo there now. And so, this is something that they theoretically should stand behind. I mean, it's a bipartisan issue. I mean, it's been
You're
co-sponsored.
talking about the legislature. I'm talking about the utility companies and how they're going to mount their attack.
Well, it's not like the utilities came out and said, if we want to do this, it was the legislature that created the provisions that said, you have to do this.
Well, I think, and I'm sure that they're in the camp, they just want to be able to recoup their money. Only because of time, I'm going to thank you quickly if people want to get a hold of you and work with you on this effort.
Yeah, so like I said, we have a page on Facebook, and it's a Facebook group, and it's called Citizens Against Eversource. There may be a name change in the future, but ultimately we will always represent transparency, and we will always be against the encroachment of the government. And so, and that's in every aspect of life, whether it's, with your energy bills or whether it's with, other rights that they try to remove from us. So I can be reached on there. I ask everybody to please join because, within the upcoming months, we're going to need a lot of support from people in, many communities, whether it's Western Mass and or Boston, et cetera, to help us with these initiatives. And essentially, by helping us, you'll be able to set yourself up to afford not only the utilities, but have money left over to live like is intended for any American citizen.
Elijah D'Souza, thank you so much for coming in studio to talk to us about. Congratulations on,
thank you so much.
Getting the question out there. And I look forward to working with you on this because I think it is so important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Power to the people.
If people don't own things, they don't feel ownership of the country they're in. And the country gets super volatile because people feel like they've got nothing to lose. It's really hard to have a family without a house.
Everything from clothing to household items are getting more expensive each day. The world of fast fashion has complicated clothing production by shipping cheap parts around the world to whoever can sew them the cheapest. And now you, the consumer, are paying the price with rising costs. American Giant is about keeping things simple and close to home. They aren't affected by tariffs because their products never leave the U.S. Skip the tariff and snag yourself American-made clothing with American Giant. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com. That's 20% off when you use code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com.